Men need to keep up with the masculine persona. If you do anything but become a doctor, like at least in that example,
You're a failure.
you're a failure.
Welcome to Beyond the Sugarcoat.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Sugarcoat. Today, I'm sitting down with a licensed marriage and family therapist. And this, women, if you're brown, even if you're not, bring your man in this conversation to watch, because this is the South Asian man's playbook for relationships. You don't have to be South Asian, but this is what we're going to relate to. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Tell me about the South Asian man's playbook.
So it is positioned as a self-development course specifically for either Indian Caribbean or South Asian men. This course was honestly born out of just seeing how many men out there, again, not all men, but how a lot of men out there really lack the emotional intelligence needed to navigate relationships today. I think I saw this might have been like a TikTok or Instagram, but this has come up a lot in conversations with my friends about how women out here, we're well-rounded. We have the career, we have our self-care routine, we have our support circle, we're going to therapy, coaching, we're doing all of the things. And men aren't really progressing with us, right? They're probably just into sports, the gym, and their work. They're not really doing any sort of self-improvement, nothing that really taps into that emotional intelligence aspect.
And a lot of men don't even talk to their friends.
No, they don't.
They feel guilty or ashamed. I'm not going to talk about. I need to keep this masculine
persona up.
Yeah,
100%. No, men need to keep up with the masculine persona, right? This masculine energy, and ultimately, they're not growing or they're not elevating themselves at the speed women are elevating ourselves. We have this amazing fulfilled life. I can't tell you how many women I know out there that are single, they're amazing, they're independent, they have everything going for them, but they just struggle when it comes to dating, or they're struggling when it comes to finding a man who can probably fit into her lifestyle or vice versa, right? And it's because a lot of men really lack the emotional intelligence. So this course was really born out of that. It was obviously my own dating experience, the experiences that my friends have, and then also just clinical experience, the things that I'm seeing in my clients with men.
Wow. Give me an example, one thing from your playbook for a man.
So one of the modules I have in my playbook is called attachment styles. It's essentially based on the relationships that you had growing up with your caregiver and how that probably determines or shapes your relationship today. So it's how you really see love and how you navigate your own relationships. Like, how safe do you feel in relationships? There's 3 different attachment styles. There's anxious, there's avoidant, and there's secure. And there's a 4th one, but these are the 3 main biggest one.
Let me guess, South Asian men fall into avoidance?
Yeah, a lot of men do it. And characteristics of avoidant is not being able to properly communicate your needs or your feelings. And normally that creates this distance. Men normally pull away. People who have avoidant styles normally pull away when it gets too much.
Is it because their parents will be disappointed in them? Because that's the theme I'm finding with South Asian men. They're so afraid of disappointing their parents. They will do things that, behind their parents' back, just not to tell them. They will avoid telling them the truth about who they really are.
Yeah, that could definitely be a thing. But I also think it's really just the way they navigate relationships. Not a lot of them are comfortable talking about their own needs, boundaries, as well as wants in a relationship.
They probably don't even know.
They probably don't even know what their needs are. I don't know. But it's sometimes hard to communicate those things with a partner. Whereas women, a lot of the times, just tend to fall more into the anxious attachment style. And this is where you overly communicate. You want to see your partner all the time. You don't really need a whole lot of space. You just want to be around them. For example, let's say you have anxious attachment style and I have an avoidant attachment style, and we're dating someone who just has more of an anxious attachment style. It becomes overwhelming for somebody that's avoidant.
Yeah.
Because you want to know whereabouts all the time, and you don't need a whole lot of space, and you're great at communicating, or you overly communicate. And for me, someone that under communicates, it's a lot. So men normally tend to fall into that, I just want some space, I'm not great at communicating, we pull away when it gets a little too much. That's just normally the characteristics of an avoidant person. So having men kind of understand that dynamic is going to hopefully help them navigate their own dynamic. Because if you know someone is anxious, you probably know by now that they need a little bit of reassurance, right? They like communication. And if you know that, you can navigate it really well. Whereas let's say I know that I'm dating with, let's say, an avoidant person. I know that he probably is going to value his space and freedom, right? He doesn't really need to know whereabouts a whole lot. And if I come in with too much emotions, it's going to feel overwhelming for him.
Yeah, that's probably not a relationship they should be in then.
Probably not.
Because she's not going to most likely not going to have her needs met.
Yeah, it's so funny because that is actually the most common relationship dynamic because it kind of has a push and pull dynamic, right? Anxious people, we want reassurance and we want that closeness, whereas avoidant people, we don't. So it's almost like this push and pull dynamic. You normally see it all the time.
Yeah. How does being raised in a South Asian culture have a man see himself with masculinity?
Oh, I think if anything, it enforces it 100 times.
Amplifies it?
Amplifies it. Times 10. This isn't just in South Asian. This is probably in all cultures with men. Feelings are a big no-no, right? Emotions are not a thing. You have to be seen as strong. You have to be seen as the provider. And if you're seen as anything less, then you're not good enough. You're probably criticized. You're probably shamed. And there's probably been times where men that are a little bit too in touch with their emotions, they kind of get criticized for maybe being a little too in touch with their feminine side, right? But that's quite normal. That's not really something to be shamed about. So I would say South Asian culture, if anything, amplifies a man's masculinity.
That's a lot of pressure for you guys.
Yeah.
So what is he supposed to do to navigate this masculinity thing? When does he come down to earth and say, wait a minute, I'm being pressured to be something that doesn't exist. There's no perfect masculinity.
There is, and I think there's a healthy boundary with it. You never want to be seen as cold, right? Or someone that is not emotionally in tune with their feelings, but you also don't want to seem as someone who is not able to regulate their emotions. Because at that point, that's probably really volatile or really impulsive. It's really finding the healthy balance. I think if anyone is able to just acknowledge their feelings and communicate it in a healthy way, that's really all we need. Yeah. But a lot of people aren't able to do that. Women probably overdo that, and then men underdo that, and there's this imbalance at times.
So what should a man do when he recognizes, you know what, my masculinity is hurting my marriage or my relationship? Or I don't want to be making that mistake when I see it in so many other relationships.
Well, I would say asking his partner, what are some things he can do? Because she's probably the first one to pick up on those things, right? Being open to change, sometimes it takes accepting help from the outside, which is a very hard pill to swallow for a man sometimes. It's seeking help from other people. So if you're able to seek help from a therapist, or if you're not comfortable with a therapist, there's also relationship coaches that will help.
Or life coaches, how to improve yourself as a human being.
Yeah, and just how to navigate those things.
This is a playbook towards guys. That would be great, going to life coach, because some men don't want to go to marriage counselor, because then that admits to them, I'm having issues.
Right. I definitely think in South Asian culture, or really any BIPOC community, coaching is seen as more receptive than mental health counseling, for sure.
What are some invisible rules that South Asian boys are raised with?
The biggest one is they have to provide. Doesn't matter if they like it, doesn't matter if they're happy, they have to provide. Normally that means financially. This is why you see a lot of men who are just focused on bringing money in and nothing else in the marriage. There's also the whole emotions. Showing emotions is not a thing. And, a lot of that comes from just upbringing, right? Vulnerability, not a thing. They're not able to kind of take down that mask and actually show feelings. And sometimes when you're not able to show your feelings, you don't know how you're feeling. And if you don't know how you're feeling, you're not able to communicate how you're feeling. And this leads to a lot of the times imbalances in communication style, and also just navigating those difficult conversations. I know you were mentioning an example about how sometimes men will just give the silent treatment, and it's just a lack of being able to navigate feelings in these conversations.
So they're giving the silent treatment not as a form of manipulation?
It could be a form of manipulation, but sometimes silent treatment is just easier. It's just easier. It's easier than being able to say hey, I felt hurt.
Oh my God, it takes 1 second to say I feel hurt, but they'll take days to give that silent treatment.
Yeah.
So, what makes sense? If it takes you 2 minutes to formulate one simple sentence about how you feel, I'm not feeling happy right now because of this, That's so much better than not saying anything at all, making your partner guess and being silent with her. Now you're just digging a deeper hole.
You're also creating a really unhealthy emotional climate at home.
Yeah.
Because women, like, we can feel it. We can
Yeah.
feel when something's wrong. Like, even the way you, like, maybe close the door, or the way you, like, pour the milk in the bowl, whatever. We
Right.
feel that.
Yeah.
Right? So the emotional temperature at home is now off.
Yeah, because it comes out more physical in them, I guess, those feelings, instead of through their mouth, than us or women guessing, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What's going on?
Biologically, too, fun fact, women are able to kind of notice just, like, different tones. We're able to kind of just, like, pinpoint different facial expressions. Like, we're looking for different
Yeah.
changes in
very
voice
good at
rhythm.
that.
Yeah, we're really good at that. So even if someone says they're fine, just their voice, we can pinpoint, okay, like, something is not fine.
Right.
Like, we're able to navigate or pinpoint a difference in emotional clients, just like
Right.
one of our gifts.
While men will be just like, they said they're fine.
Yeah,
They're
they say they're fine. Yeah, you're right.
They won't even pick up on
Men
they're
are
really not fine.
Correct, because that's not what they do biologically. They're not
Right.
capable of doing that. You can say something to them, but they don't hear you, and it's because their brain doesn't work like that.
It seems like from these episodes that we're talking about, it seems like both sexes, both genders, don't have a good head start on this stuff.
No.
Women
No.
with the expectations on them, and these poor South Asian brown men that have all this pressure on them too.
Yeah, it's pressure on both ends in just such different ways, right?
Right.
And it leads to totally different outcomes. Like, the pressure in women leads us to overperform, and the pressure in men kind of leads them to just, like, sometimes underperform, but also just sometimes really stay silent and just not cause any chaos or arguments, or just kind
Yeah,
of suffer
totally
in silence.
avoid
Yeah.
what's really going on.
Yeah, avoiding is a good word.
How does that pressure affect their emotional well-being?
I think it's actually detrimental. If you were raised to just provide for the family financially, you're probably not thinking about anything else. You're probably going to provide at the cost of your emotional health. So
I like the way you said that, at the cost of your emotional health.
yeah, I've met with a few male doctors who they hated what they do, but they just do it because their parents probably pressure them into doing residency, going to med school, all that fun stuff. But also, they know at the end of it, they're going to be bringing in a whole lot of money. And that's the only thing that they really, like, care about. So throughout med school, you'll see a lot of the times they kind of neglect their self-care. They neglect their emotional health. They don't really pay attention to therapy, all these things that can maybe help them out in that way. And they're pushing through to make sure they kind of get to the big bucks at the end, because that's kind of the most important thing for them.
Right. And then the pressure from the family too. So and
from the
so, or
family.
you know, their kids are finishing
Yeah,
successfully
yeah.
doing this. Why can't you? Or
Then you have
or feel that
comparison coming
pressure
into play.
that you're less than a good person or a capable person.
Yeah, it's like if you do anything but become a doctor, like, at least in that example, it's
Your failure.
you're a failure.
Yeah.
And that is too big of a pill for some people to swallow. Like, it's
That's too big of a pill for anybody
yeah,
to swallow.
Yeah.
Wow, that someone
It's
else's
really tough.
expectations, you can't fulfill it. So you'll carry that emotional damage throughout the rest of your life.
South Asian men do really deal with a lot of pressure, though.
What happens when a man's family of origin expectations clash with his wife's needs?
So if you are a South Asian man and you grew up a certain way, a certain dynamic, and you're marrying a partner who just comes from a very different background and has very different needs, maybe looks at family a little bit differently, there's definitely going to be clashes, for sure. Definitely going to be clashes. There's nothing wrong with that. It's how can you bridge that gap to those needs. Ultimately, I think if there's issues with values, there's definitely going to be, like, harder issues to overcome. Like, if, I don't know, one person wants kids, the other one doesn't, or one person wants to be closer to family, the other person doesn't. I don't know if there's going to be, like, any compromise. Like, one person is going to have to compromise, right?
One person is.
But I definitely think you could bridge those gaps to different needs. It's just a matter of, are you open to doing that? And sometimes some people are, and sometimes some people are not.
What patterns do you see in men when they fail to express their feelings, their emotions?
Sometimes they lash out at their partners. I mean, it's so true when they say how you treat people is a reflection of how you feel about yourself. You see that a lot. Men are not able to emotionally regulate in a healthy way. So they look to the closest thing that they can probably lash out at, emotionally, verbally, physically, whatever the case is. And it's normally children or their partners. A lot of times I will see men engaging in a lot of substance use. Issues with alcohol, issues with substances, and sometimes you'll also see just anger issues. A lot of anger
There's
management
a lot of
that kind
anger
of comes
issues
up.
in the South Asian male community. Yeah. You know, you brought up something about drinking, something that's very predominant in a lot of the South Asian culture is alcohol.
Oh yeah. Yeah, oh, yeah. My parents grew up in the Caribbean, so over there it's drinking, over here it's substance use.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yeah. Why so much drinking?
It's so normalized. I also think some people seek that temporary relief. At least like now in today's age, a lot of people do turn to substances because they
They're easily available too.
They're easily available. You can't even go to a bowling alley without seeing like a bar.
It's more acceptable to do those type of substances than to deal with your own feeling.
A lot of men do struggle with that because, like I said, it's a lack of accountability and a lack of accepting that, you know, if I were to stop drinking, I really would have to face the fact that I am very unhappy, I'm miserable, so on and so forth.
Right.
So it is a really difficult thing to acknowledge and to accept.
And they can't blame other people for their unhappiness. It truly is something that's coming in from their own self because they're the ones doing the drinking. They can't blame it on somebody else.
No.
So it's their own unhappiness.
Yeah.
So there you go, guys. That sounds like you got to do self-assessment, and there's no shame in doing it. I mean, you want a healthy relationship, and that's why hopefully your female counterpart has brought you here to watch this episode because there is nothing out there to help South Asian men.
I would love to hear from any men in the comment though. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, why do, you know, from your experience, why do men engage in those things? Or why is there always, you know, sometimes a riff, or if you disagree with anything, please put it in the comments because I want to know.
At the end of the day, these South Asian men, they are stuck with what they were brought up with, right? They didn't have a fighting chance to maybe change it if they saw that it was wrong. How do they fix it in their personal identity now?
I think it takes a lot of recognizing what's wrong and what isn't. So sometimes what I will do is with my South Asian clients is take them through a personal inventory of what they've seen growing up. So get honest about what they've seen. So if they know they have a parent who suffers from maybe substance use, anger management, be honest about it because that's the first step there is to recognizing that, making sure that you're not maybe taking on any of those qualities.
Yeah.
So really recognizing what type of marriage did your parents have? What type of relationship do you have with your sibling? What type of relationship do your parents have with their families? And which of those do you want to actually maybe remodel? And which of those do you actually want to discard? I would say that's the first step. And normally that's been a eye-opening exercise because in order to acknowledge that maybe we have some of these qualities, we have to look to where we were actually raised and to the people that we were raised.
And as you're saying that, it's conjuring up, I know this man, his parents fought with so many people in their family, with siblings, that this man carried that pattern. Has times when he doesn't talk to sibling for decades or doesn't talk to his parents for a few years.
Yeah, it's so sad.
And now, you know, it turns out this man is not talking to his child and talking to his spouse, or even on his own side. He'll get into anger fits with uncles and stuff on his side and the males in there. And I see that pattern.
Wow.
Because the parents habitually made that a part of their life without even knowing it.
It's great that you recognize that because I feel like that's a pattern that's easier to recognize, but a lot of the times it's so hard to recognize the deeper patterns that we see, right? Or pick up on certain things that are a little bit harder to pick up.
Can you give an example when that's harder to pick up?
Yeah. One of the clients that I'm working with, her husband has a pattern of whenever he gets into an argument with his parents, it can be a huge blowout. We're talking like argument, volume raised, everything.
With his parents?
With his parents, and they'll just go back to acting like normal. There's no comfort conversation. There's no apology. It's almost like you have full blown argument, and then like 2 days, 3 days later, we're going back to how the dynamic was.
Like nothing ever happened.
Like nothing ever happened. And she's telling me that's the weirdest thing she's ever seen because she's never experienced that before.
And there's no conflict resolution.
There's no conflict resolution. And with her, whenever they have an argument, he does the same thing. And she just started pointing that out. She can recognize the bigger patterns, but that was one of the ones where it was a little bit more difficult to recognize because for her, she's normally used to having a conversation like, hey, sorry about this. Like, let's talk about this. Let's mend things. But with him, it's almost like, we're just not going to talk about it.
Yeah. I think that a lot of it comes down to ego.
Yeah.
Like if people would just bring their ego down a little bit, they could say, hey, I think we need to talk about this, right? Sweeping it under the rug is not going to help you. What has happened when you sweep things under the rug? You just collect a lot of dust.
You do, yeah. You collect a lot of dust, a lot of resentment.
Yeah, so a simple analogy is that, but that shows you it happens even with human beings when we accumulate all these emotions and feelings on how to deal with things.
Yeah, But why are we not talking about it? Like, I think that's a bigger question. Like, what
Shame.
is so
I think
hard?
It's shame.
Yeah, what is so hard about having a conversation with a partner or your parent and saying like, hey, this is what I need. This is what I don't like.
A lot of South Asian men are fearful of their parents, that is disrespect. I was raised at a time when, even now, if you talk back to your parents or express how you feel, that's being rude and talking back to them.
It is, yeah. It still is today.
Yeah, it still is today. I want to be not that way with my kids, so I am open to them. And some people might say, oh, she's a little too open with her kids, but you know what? I would rather know, because they are the most important people to my world.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I?
Right. Having that open communication and dialogue is so important. So
and don't try to be perfect. You're not perfect.
No one is.
Neither of the other South Asian brown boys and girls, they're not perfect either. They're just giving a perception.
We have just been conditioned to just not have these really difficult conversations. Like, it's insane to me.
I think a lot of it is we're brought up with fear, right? You can't dare say how you feel because that's going against what your parents are saying. What are the emotional skills every South Asian man should learn to create a healthy relationship?
I would say emotional awareness is definitely one. Just being aware of not just how you're feeling, but how the people around you are feeling and how to navigate that. That will easily lead into communication. Being able to properly and effectively communicate how you feel to those around you. If you're able to at least acknowledge it in yourself, you can surely communicate it to someone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point you just made.
Accountability. Just being okay with not being right all the time. And that's okay, right?
It's okay not to be right all the time.
Yeah. But you have to be okay with taking accountability. And then if there's more growth or more steps needed, be okay with that.
Here's another interesting point to make regarding accountability. Just because you think you're right doesn't mean everybody else thinks you're right. But they feel that they are right because they won't take accountability.
Yeah, and sometimes it's also not just about being right. It's just being able to freely communicate and be okay with that, right? As a partner, I should be able to share my heart with you, right? And if I can't do that, and it's always a matter of who's right or wrong, there's really no emotional intimacy, or there's not going to be a whole lot of it.
I'm so glad we just touched on this topic. There's so much to be discussed on South Asian men and helping you guys and your playbook. So if you're interested, you know, Malini has her own site. I'm going to put the information here. We'd love to hear your comments. Reach out and get help. And if she can't help you, she can direct you to somebody else.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us on Beyond the Sugarcoat. It sounds like you're saying a Salvation Man every time I hear it.
South Asian. That is very suffocating to somebody that's avoidant, right?
Why are you beating yourself with
sorry.
gorilla?
Sorry.